Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Founder Chat. My name is Melanie Ewan. I'm one of the co-founders and managing partners at Volition, and I'm super excited to be here today to introduce you to Sean Burke, who is the founder and CEO of CheckingIn, which we're going to hear all about in just a moment. So if you haven't been to one of our Founder Chats before, essentially we have kind of like a 30-minute informal kind of interview-style conversation. But we do encourage you, whether you're joining us live here right now, or if you're joining us on IGTV or YouTube, please do say hello and feel free to ask questions as well. Essentially, we're going to talk about the origin story of CheckingIn and about Sean's journey of entrepreneurship, which I'm sure has many lessons learned along the way. You've done quite a bit. And so let's learn a little bit more about CheckingIn to begin with, which is a leading mental well-being product for companies. So, Sean, I'm gonna send it over to you now. I'll stop gabbing away here. So please do introduce yourself, and then I'd love to hear the kind of origins of what CheckingIn is.
Cool. Well, hello everybody. I am Sean. I'm the founder of CheckingIn, and yeah, just really excited to be here today. One, to share my past experience about what took me on this journey to get to where we are today with CheckingIn, and obviously how that ultimately ends up supporting people in their well-being journey. So the story of CheckingIn really started from my last company, and working with my co-founder over on my previous startup. We started seeing a different vision for where we wanted to take the company, and as a result we started working with business coaches. And through that experience, I really just was able to hone into the benefits of self-awareness and emotional intelligence. And in working with my coach, Judy Brooks, she was able to bring this idea of a quick check-in. And that was really based on two questions, which was, what's your word and what's your number? So how are you feeling and how much energy do you have? And through that simplicity, it really transformed and changed my life. And so in sharing that with other people, my friends and families, just started seeing, hey, would something like this have a meaningful impact on your life as well? And in hearing that feedback and getting the success stories of sharing with others, that's what led me to ultimately see, hey, I think there's something bigger here, and let's see if we could productize this and bring it to the rest of the world.
Yeah. And when was this again? What's the timeline of this?
That was around the later parts of 2018.
Okay.
And then slowly, we started off as a little bit of a side hustle. I met my co-founder, Emerson. He was an amazing developer. And he was able to recruit and bring on board some other technical engineers and designers. And from there, we were able to get our first kind of family and friends investment and started building the company from there.
I think it's absolutely incredible. And Sean, mental health is really important to me. And especially over the last year, I'd be curious kind of what, I know if you could kind of give us some insight into kind of where CheckingIn is at, and also what has the last year looked like in working in this mental health space for employees.
Yeah, it's, to be honest too, like the product and the tools started out focused on going directly to the consumer. So
right.
We were initially positioned as a B2C consumer-facing app. And what we quickly realized is that as we built up the technology, it was about 2 years in, at that point, the pandemic started. And from that perspective, we had a lot of employees that were already working with employers, and the employers started crowdsourcing through their employees and asking, hey, what tools or what supports do you have in place that we might be able to share with the rest of your employees? And so that's when CheckingIn started coming up in these conversations. And so we had employers starting to reach out and asking, hey, is this a product that we could bring to all of our staff? And so from that perspective, the light bulb went on. And we sort of shifted the focus from being a direct B2C product to then now making it more broadly available from a B2B to ultimately C. And so, yeah, the pandemic really accelerated sort of that trajectory on the business side. But what I will say is that at the end of the day, the benefit is ultimately to the user of the tool. So whether that's an employee getting it through their employer, or anybody going to the App Store or Play Store and downloading it themselves, that's really what we're focused on, is helping people really show up as their true self. It's not about
Right.
trying to be happier, healthier. You know, that's going to be a byproduct. But at the end of the day, it's like we want to empower you to be who you are, and be that authentic self. That's really what we're all about.
Right. So if I were to join checking in and I started using it, we'll get into what the well checking in well-being challenge is in just a moment. But if I were to start using this platform, what would it look like for me as a kind of like day-to-day user of checking in?
Yeah, so the app is really built on three core principles. So simplicity, brevity, and clarity. And so
Mm,
we always start with a check-in. And that check-in consists of two questions. What's your word? How are you feeling? And what's your number? On a scale of 1 to 10, how much energy do you have right now?
mm,
And so by just asking yourself those two simple questions, that's really what brings out the clarity for yourself to understand, where am I currently at from an emotional perspective? And then from there, what the tool will help you do is, you know, it asks you a question: do you want to go deeper and explore that emotion further, or do you want to sit with that feeling and be done? And if
mhm.
you want to go deeper, we have curated breathwork sessions, meditations, other CBT activities or movement through yoga, um, poses, or different stretching. And really the idea there is to help you to process and work through that emotion, and then ultimately provide a reflection prompt to help you again journal on some of those thoughts and situations that are happening around you.
Fantastic. It's so simple. I love how simple that is. And I'm really excited to try it myself. Haven't yet, but I think it'll be really useful. And something we often get asked when we're talking to founders such as yourself, especially in the first few years of a business, is what, and with that pivot that you've had or the evolution that you've had in the last year, what do you see as the vision for checking in? What does this look like kind of 5+ years into the future?
Yeah, you know, I think for us at the end of the day, it's about bringing self-awareness to everyone's lives. And when we first started out on this journey, have always had this ambition where at the time it was actually even lower numbers than it is now, but at the time there was about 1 in 3 people in the world that experienced some form of mental illness throughout their life. Now it's even higher.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, we had the number. We said, okay, well, if there's about 7 billion people in this world, you know, or just slightly underneath that, like, could we take that number and say, let's try to get 1/3 of the population to be checking in and
Mm,
using this tool? So we had that ambitious goal of 2.25 billion daily check-ins, people building self-awareness. And I think really that's what we're after, is trying to create a world where it's this notion of emotional intelligence, but it's so simple. So the app and the tool supports you building the habit and can help you identify trends and, you know, bring that awareness into your life. But the reality is we're looking for a world that's, you know, people are emotionally intelligent. They're understanding what around them is impacting their feelings and how that ultimately can then be used, to really create more awareness of self so that you
mhm,
can
mhm,
change your
mhm.
life.
Yeah, and honestly, like I've been doing quite a few talks on burnout and anxiety and whatnot since 2018. And one of the biggest questions people ask is they want to know how it felt to go through burnout in my body because they're asking me, like maybe I'm burning out, maybe I have anxiety, but I just don't know. Like, how do I know when things are not okay? How do I know when I need to take more than a day off of work? Like, just that awareness of what's going on in our bodies and our minds and how it's impacting us, I feel is there's a huge disconnect. So I think it's really interesting to kind of use a tool like this and I imagine be able to kind of see also how you're doing over time. Is that a part of it where I can look back and kind of see how I'm doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's kind of like the last pillar in the app, is where you can see the different trends that are happening.
Hmm.
And the key to that is really recognizing what is the behavior, that's driving certain emotions or feelings. And
Right?
even when you're talking about burnout, burnout doesn't just happen. Uh,
No.
you know, it's a prolonged period.
Yes, and it's
Um,
ignoring symptoms for a very long time.
exactly. And
Yeah.
so one of, you know, where we're working on from a roadmap and technical perspective is being able to help people identify these different triggers and trends that are happening
Yeah.
before they manifest into
Yeah.
this. And
Yeah.
so that's something that, will be coming down the road. Right now, it's more of on the user to be able to look at their history, to be able to see and understand what those trends are coming. But in the future, that's what we're aiming for, where we can be more suggestive and get people to become curious. Like, what is this emotion telling me? Because at the end of the day, no emotion is a bad emotion, right? All feelings are valid. And
it's just way of the body communicating, right?
Yeah, so we need to listen to that and use that as information and make those different changes if that's what, in fact, we want to do.
Yeah, really cool. I was just also thinking about, I was actually doing a pitch and presentation masterclass last week with high school students, but the Q&A, the first question I got in Q&A was about mental health and burnout. I was like, they were like, oh, I read your LinkedIn. I saw you talked about this. I want to talk about it. This is like a great, 11, 12 students saying, I'm worried about where I'm at. And I was like, okay, this is upsetting to me. I've never had this situation come up where that's like a question that comes up when I'm not even talking about that at all. But like happy they felt like they talk about it. So I'm kind of like envisioning like checking in also being in like school systems or like, it's upsetting, but also I think it's such an incredible way to kind of open the conversation and have those and like normalize checking in and normalize talking about these things. So want to thank you for doing this. And I'd love to know a bit about your journey to checking in, like how I know a little bit of your journey, and I think we actually went to the same high school, and like I know a little bit of that kind of journey from back then, but like not like how do you get from where you were to your previous kind of companies that you had to checking in? And I know you were talking about like you went through this yourself and came from a personal place, but that entrepreneur journey, what have you learned along that way, and how did you, I don't know, like I want to know more. I want to know more about your journey and how you got to like this place you are in today.
Well, it's definitely been a learning curve. That is for sure. And I think that, that's kind of personally my sort of, what I love about just where I'm at with checking in, and also to the opportunities that it's provided me is from a very young age, I've always been an entrepreneur. I've always loved the idea of creating something and building it from scratch. So much so that, when I was a young kid, I started a lawn mowing company, and I had a little slogan, "Love your lawn, call Sean."
That's amazing.
And so at the time, sure, this was just like, a fun thing for me to be able to build a little bit of money and go spend it on some candy. But I think like those were the formation of the building blocks around just who I was as an individual.
Right.
Then you layer on the fact of sports and that being a really big part of my background, the competition and competitive side of me, and wanting to, again, have success in whatever that was. So fortunately, I was able to go to SFU on a basketball scholarship. And through that experience, I knew I wanted to do business, but I didn't know what it was. I always thought I'd be a finance guy. And it was one day I had a partner at PwC, the accounting firm, reach out and he was a big basketball supporter, came to a bunch of our games, saw a bunch of things that, I was doing outside of basketball in the community. And so he gave me an opportunity to come down and see out what it was like to be a CA. So started at PwC and got my chartered accountant designation. And then from there, really, wanted to be that entrepreneur within a big global firm and organization. How high could you go? And so I was fortunate to have a lot of really great mentors help me and also to provide me with a path and a journey to build different skills, build relationships, understand the nuances of business. And then it led me to New York for a couple of years, where I was able to work with some of the largest companies in the banking capital market sector. And then that ultimately led me back to Vancouver, realizing, hey, you know what, as much as I can be an entrepreneur and was fortunate about the opportunities at PwC, I always wanted to become my own entrepreneur.
Go back to those lawn mowing roots.
Yeah, that's right. Love your lawn, call Sean. I'm surprised my parents haven't called me back to continue to mow their lawn. But then that's when, I was able to meet my co-founder, Peter Paul, at FrontFundr. And that was the start of, where FrontFundr is today, which is the leading equity crowdfunding platform in Canada. And it was really just an idea around could we make financing for earlier stage companies more accessible? And could we allow all Canadians to support companies that they believed in?
Yeah.
And so that was the start. And then you fast forward about 4 years, and then we decided to go our own separate ways and continue to be a huge champion and supporter of FrontFundr. And so much so, actually, that they were one of the first users of checking in on the corporate side.
Oh, amazing.
So yeah, and the next question is, well, when are you going to go on FrontFundr to raise your finance?
Yeah.
Coming soon, so stay tuned.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's really cool.
Yeah, and then that led me to working with a couple of private equity firms here in Vancouver with Intelligence Capital and one of their operating companies, Pixel Union, and working directly with the CEO over there. And getting some really great experience, and again building some further relationships, but then ultimately the itch needed to be scratched when it came to checking in, and got that first seed capital from Intelligence Capital, and then from there was able to continue to build this out and continue the journey.
It's fantastic. What a journey. And I think like a huge thread that I'm seeing throughout is that kind of relationship building element. I'm thinking about that person who came and saw your games and was like, hey, like I'm a basketball fan, I like have this opportunity, do you want to be a part of this? And like those who have the power and privilege to be able to do that for others down the road in our careers, I mean, look what an incredible difference it made in your life. And I think that's so powerful that someone was just like, I've looked into you a bit, I want to kind of like introduce you to this stuff. So amazing. So relationship building, really, really amazing in that entrepreneur journey. And that's so exciting.
It's so true. Like mentorship, I think you can't put a price tag on that. And it's really something that needs to happen organically. But I've been very, very fortunate to have some really great mentors. And some mentors will come and go, and at different times, there'll be different needs for whatever it might be. But I think the people that have been there since day one, in building, checking in, and even prior to that, those are the people that when we had the idea, I went right back to them. So first of all, you got to start with your family. I have an amazing support system from my wife, my parents, my family and friends, and then from there it's just about building those business relationships and contacts.
Yeah. And speaking of business relationships and partnerships, I'm going to segue there. I'd love to talk about what we're working on together. And I was so happy because we have been kind of like we shifted our newsletter strategy around a little bit. We're like, let's be more like who we are and let ourselves like come out in these and have like really interesting and difficult conversations sometimes. And I think we did a newsletter on something about mental health. It was about I think it was around in January when everyone was kind of like, I'm so tired again, and there was a lot going on emotionally for a lot of people, as there still is. And I was so happy that Sean, you reached out and said, hey, really like this newsletter, I'd love to talk about working together. And like based on a relationship that you'd built with Paul, of course, my co-founder, and that you wanted to give back to this world that you've been a part of for so long. So I'd love to talk about our partnership and also learn a little bit more about the 30-day wellness challenge. So tell us about the challenge. Tell us about the challenge, and then we'll dig into it. Yeah.
Well, I think first of all, the Volition community and what you guys have done is pretty incredible. And so even well before the foundations of FrontFundr, Volition's always been there supporting and being the biggest cheerleader along the way. So from that perspective, I think there's a great community here. And really, when I saw that email, the first thing that stood out was startups, earlier stage companies, dealing with the challenges of the pandemic, first of all, financially, second of all, emotionally. And there's not a lot of support when it comes to, just by the nature of the startup world, benefits that are available to employees of startup companies. So having been in that position and still currently in that position now, I think, I was sitting there and being like, I have a tool. We're working with companies. but what can I do to support and give back to this community as well? So as much as, Volition's been able to support in terms of pitch coaching and just different introductions, relationships, and opportunity to get the product out there, I think, it was an opportunity to say, hey, what can I do and give back? Yeah. And so with the 30-day challenge, we basically have made it available to the community for their companies to bring on all of their employees to take advantage of the 30-day challenge and get the full enterprise package and experience at no cost. And this is all thanks, obviously, to the great work that you're doing. And we want to try to support people. We know it's a difficult time. And, startup life's a hard life sometimes. So, we're here to support those companies as well and give back in that way.
Yeah, amazing. We're so excited to be doing this. It's something that the entire team at Volition, we talk about mental health quite a bit and how we can support the community and each other, of course. And when COVID first came out in the first kind of like 3 months of the pandemic, we reached out to our community and talked to them about how they were feeling across predominantly North America and Europe. And there was a lot of kind of like all over the place and things weren't good, and it depended on where you were kind of. And then we've all seen kind of what that's looked like over time. But I found that like a lot of the founders in our community have just continued going because they pivoted, or they were working to support their teams, or whatever that looked like. They still haven't kind of taken pause to I don't know. We can't even process yet is the thing. So there's so much going on, and we've been struggling with how do we support, what can we do? So this was such an incredible opportunity to partner with you and with Checking In. And so if you haven't heard that we're doing this yet, we sent out a message to our newsletter, and we have some companies that are coming on. And as John said, it's open to all startups in our community who are interested. So we'll put some information in the show notes or whatever it's called after this, but we'll also be messaging and talking about this on social media. And our intention is to launch this for Mental Health Awareness Month, which is in May, which is also exciting in terms of actually I'd love to know, like with Checking In with what you're doing. Do you have other plans for May? What does this look like? I know mental health is an all year round thing, obviously, but is there anything else we can do to kind of have this or amplify this conversation during the upcoming month of May, which is soon, I think?
Yeah,
coming up soon,
a couple of weeks.
Somehow.
Crazy. I think that you're exactly right. Like, we're doing this with a lot of companies. And I think that we're leveraging the fact that this awareness month has already been created and established. And, we recognize at the time that we're currently in and, the difficulty and challenges that people are continuing to face. Like, this is a great opportunity to get it in their hands.
Yeah.
But I think bigger than that, it's about moving from an awareness and a conversation around enabling people to feel, like they can be vulnerable within an organization and talk about their mental health, to actually taking action and to empowering people to not only just recognize and maybe provide awareness within an organization that mental health is an important conversation to be had, but to take that first step and to recognize and say, hey, here are all the supports that we have in place. And it doesn't have to be something that is a conversation between you and your manager. It can be something that you can work on, with yourself. Or if you need to reach out to somebody, then here's the supports that you can reach out to. But I think it's about taking that next step. That's really what we're focused on.
Yeah.
Empowering people to become accountable to their own mental health.
Yeah. All right. So I know we only have a little bit of time here left, and I'd love to know, you've already shared a lot about your entrepreneur journey, but I'd be curious about if you have any kind of like quick tips for entrepreneurs who maybe are just starting out their journey, or maybe they're just building their team and they're trying to think about mental health when it comes to being a founder, when it comes to building your team and supporting your team. This is something that's come up a lot kind of in the last few months in particular. Do you have any tips for your fellow entrepreneurs out there?
Oh yeah, definitely some, I would say, lived experience that probably is manifested now into what I think I could probably share here. The first one I would say is be patient. So starting anything takes time. And I think
Mm-hmm.
as like a founder, one of our biggest challenges to overcome is this need to make it all happen overnight. And if you can kind of step back and realize that, it's not that next feature that necessarily is going to make or break your company. It's not that one last email that, you need to send out at 11 p.m. at night.
Yeah.
Although, yeah, there's going to be a time and a place where you need to grind and you need to hustle and put in burn the candle at both ends. I'm not saying that isn't necessarily, there's a time and place for that. But I think at the end of the day, it's all about being patient and ensuring that, you're taking one step every day forward.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that exponential growth over time that when you look back, you're going to see the good things will come over that period of time.
Yeah.
Another piece is don't wait until you think you have the perfect solution to the problem. So much of entrepreneurship is failing and recognizing that, hey, you know what? I tried something, it didn't work out. Now let's try something else. And so if you wait until it's always perfect, or, in your head, what you think might be perfect, the reality is that you're just going to be wasting that time. So I don't really like to call it an MVP, minimum viable product. I like to call it an MEP, minimum enjoyable product. So
Nice.
it gives, so long as the end user is going to get the enjoyment out of it, that's really what I think we're after anyways when we're building CheckingIn.
I like that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's tons more that I could probably think
Probably, yeah, probably. But I think that's fantastic, just doing one thing to move forward each day. I was just talking to Paul about that, like doing one thing to move the business forward a day. If, like, especially if you're going through a particularly difficult time, or you're not able to burn the candles at both ends at this moment because everything else going on in your life. Just doing that one thing, you're like, if I do one thing today, this is what it's going to be. And really focusing on prioritizing that way has been very useful for me, and kind of like designing my weeks that way. And I've seen like a noticeable shift in the business as well as in myself from kind of like taking that approach, as opposed to getting like stuck in all of the to-do lists and such. And that's great. And then the minimum enjoyable product. Can remember that. I like that. So that's fantastic. All right. So you've given us so much here today. And of course, with the mental well-being challenge, you're giving back so much to our community and to everyone. So what can we do to support you?
Oh, that's a good question. I think, the biggest thing is feedback. Feedback is a huge gift for us. And although we, have a lot of lessons already learned from, the many thousands of users that have used the tool, we're always curious and wanting to know what resonates with people, what doesn't. And so one of the biggest things that we're always trying to do is reach out to our community and learn. So, if you're using the app, first of all, go on and use the free version of the app. And if you're enjoying it, for sure, we'd love you to subscribe and buy a plus version. But most importantly, it's getting that feedback and understanding, how can we make this better? How do we make it more valuable for you? And that's really would be a huge, huge win for us.
Amazing. Okay, so if you're interested, if you're watching this and you're like, I want to check this out, head on over to checkingin.co. And it looks like you're also on Instagram and Facebook at checkingin.co. And if anyone wants to get in touch with you personally, Sean, how do they reach out to you?
Yeah, it's just my name, Sean, SEAN, at checkingin.co.
Easy peasy. There you go. Fantastic. Alrighty. So what was I going to say? Oh, yes. So there's one other thing I always like to ask at the end of our, actually, no, I have two more things. First of all, is there anything that we didn't touch on here today that you would like to talk about and use this space to talk about?
No, I think, we covered a lot. And I think at the end of the day, people right now, it's a tough time. And I think like just acknowledging that and really reiterating the fact that whatever you're feeling, whatever you're going through, whether you're thriving, or just surviving, that's all good. That's where you're meant to be. And the question there is can you become aware of that? And then if you want to move, what does that look like and how can we help you get there? And that's something that I just really encourage everybody to own what they're feeling, because I think it's going to make this world a much better place to live in.
Amazing. And if you're interested in taking part in the Wellbeing Challenge, you're a startup company or you're an employee and you want to talk to your company about it, then feel free to reach out to us at Melanie, Melanie, at volitionadvisors.com, or you can just message us on Instagram or any of our socials as well over the next few weeks before May, and then we'll talk about how to get you into that May 30-day wellbeing challenge, I think.
Yeah.
Is what it is. Yeah. I remember now. Wellbeing challenge. So really looking forward to that. I want to thank you again so much, Sean, for being here, for sharing your story, for living your story and getting to where you are today, and then giving back so much to our community. We appreciate it so much, and love that you're kind of not only creating space to have these conversations, but also, and encouraging them, but also, like you said, moving to action, because that's incredibly important. Even tiny, small actions that you can take each day as an employee, as an employer, as a member of the human species. So really appreciate it, Sean. And now I have my last question of the day, which is, what is one thing that brings you joy right now?
Oh, that's an easy one. Got to be my family. So I got 2 little girls, and it's that moment when you pick them up from daycare and they're just running over the fence and jump into your arms. That's an easy one, but that's that's what really brings me joy.
Love it. Thank you so much for sharing. All right, so thanks everyone for being here. Whether you've joined us live or you're watching this on IGTV or YouTube later, we really appreciate you always being here. And feel free to still say hello and ask questions now. If you ask a question of Sean later on, we'll make sure to get it across to him. And I will be back again next week at the same time, same place. And I'm going to be interviewing Sophia Cheng, who is the founder of With Many Roots, which is a really cool company that does like eco-mentoring and things like that. So very different kind of shift, but also a lot around like mental health support and whatnot. So it should be really, really interesting. So thanks again, everyone. And thank you, Sean, for sharing your time and expertise and story. And looking forward to continuing our partnership.
Thanks, Melanie. Have a
Alrighty.
good day, everyone. Take care.
Bye, everyone.